Hi and welcome to the Felt Hub. I'm Sandy. If it's your first time here, then you are going to have an amazing time learning to needle felt. If it's not your first time here, then welcome back. I'm so pleased that you've joined us again. I have got the cutest little project for you today. It's a 90-minute project at the most, and we're going to be making this absolutely gorgeous little needle felted thrush. And this song thrush brooch is absolutely gorgeous. It can be a brooch, you can pop it in a frame, whatever you want to do with it. It makes a fantastic gift. But it's a really nice project that will teach you some really simple basic skills, but it will also allow you to experiment, and if you're a little bit more confident or a bit more advanced, you can experiment and add all sorts of different details of your own. So that is what we are making. All you will need is some sort of felting surface. It can be a foam mat, rice-filled hessian mat, something like that, or a wool mat, or anything you have, an ironing mat, anything will do, fine. You need just tiny amounts of wool. So we've got some whites and browns here. You can actually get away with just two colours if you wish. And a felting needle. I have got a coarse felting needle. Mine's a 38 star, but whatever you've got in your felt box will do the job just fine. So we'll get in there, me, you, and this lot, and we'll get felting. See you in there. Hi, welcome to the Felt Hub. I've got a cracking tutorial here today for you. This is just a little sort of 1 hour, 90-minute at the most project, and it's this gorgeous little song thrush bird. Now you can just leave it as it is, pop it in a frame, add it as part of a bigger project, or you can actually pop a brooch pin on the back, and it is absolutely beautiful as a brooch. So it makes an absolutely gorgeous handmade gift. Process is quite simple. If you watched the Jack Russell brooch tutorial, it's a very similar process, just different markings and designs. So I'll pop a link for the Jack Russell tutorial at the end for you. So I'm going to show you how easy it is. Firstly, just ignore these bits for the moment. Actually, as you can see on here, there's only 1, 2, 3 colours, I think. So we've got a white, a brown, and a very dark brown. Not true black, because I find it's quite harsh for some projects. Brilliant for others, but not for this one. So you can just work with 2 colours if you wish, but I've got a few other bits here that I might use for blending. And you can use carded wool, which I'm going to be using, or wool top. And this wool top is the Shetland Morit wool top, and it is absolutely a dream to work with. And it's really coarse and it felts really beautifully. So if you've got wool top, then this will work fine for this project as well, because it's flat felted. A lot of those marks and lumps and bumps you won't see, because you're not doing a big 3-dimensional piece. So what I've got, which is a really simple bird shape that I've cut out, so you can do that yourself. And I've also got a really simple sort of an elongated sort of teardrop shape here for the wing. But if you don't feel confident enough to do that, you may have already purchased one of the patterns from the website, but I can give you the actual template for free. So I will pop a link in the comments, and you can grab hold of your free song thrush template that I have created to make it much easier for you. So if you've got the pattern, you can work from this as well, or if you prefer to work from a pattern and a video tutorial, then as you can see, there's lots of start to finish photographs in here, step-by-step instructions, making it super easy, just like the tutorial that I'm doing now. Okay, so first thing you want, now what I'm going to do is, what I always do for my brooches is I always work on a piece of felt. It can be craft felt, it can be 100% wool felt, but just some sort of backing, because it gives it some rigidity and also makes it super easy to felt straight onto. So you cut out your template, you grab a pen. I usually use a Sharpie, but whatever you've got to hand, make the most of your felt, because you might want to make several of these. And then it's just a case of drawing round really roughly That's it. And that is what we are going to put our wool straight onto. So I shall put that out the way. Keep that so you can use it for a later date, or for other, for other projects, or to show somebody else. Okay, right. So the first thing I'm going to do is, we'll just have a look back at this again. The first thing I'm going to do is start laying the base, and we're going to build it up in about 2 or 3 layers to no more than 5 mils thick. It can be thinner if you wish, but you don't want it more than 5 mils. And the reason that we're going to start in layers is because it creates a really nice smooth finish. You just get a better finish. There's no lumps and bumps. You can get it nice and firm, and it's really easy to add the detail and keep working within that shape. So take a small piece of your white wool, and we can fill in the whole piece to start with. I'll just lay a white base on. And all I'm using here, as you can see, is I've got a coarse felting needle. This is the 38. So basically, if it's not got a lot of bend in it, then that is a coarser needle. If you're using a finer needle, then can you see how much bend that's got? If it wags a lot more, that's a finer needle. So you may have a bunch of needles, you don't know what the sizes are. If it doesn't bend, that's a good coarse needle, great for starting building up your projects. And then a bendy needle is finer for some lovely delicate finishing touches. So using my coarse needle, I am just going to start to lay down this wool inside the lines that I have drawn. And it's, as I said, it's just a thin layer, and I am using a rice filled Hessian mat here, and I love these for flat felting. I mean, if I had to choose one mat, or there was only one mat I could have that would do everything, then it would be the rice filled Hessian mat. And it's easy to make. You just piece of Hessian, fill it, sew around the edges, fill it with dried rice, and sew at the end, and away you go. But always use a topper. It will make it last so much longer. But another great mat as well is your wool felting mats. Really, really nice. Wool all the way through. And also what you might have at home, especially if you've got a kit, is you might have a felting foam mat, which is brilliant as well. Another great mat. Again, use a topper on that, anything you've got, and that will extend the life of your mat hugely. Okay, so laying down these fibres. So as you can see that? I'm just working within that line, because we're going to cut around this when we're all done. Just going to move this, and also move your mat around. Don't always felt in the same place, because then you'll wear one particular part of your mat out, and then the other parts don't get any use at all. So as you can see, I'm just using that needle just to tease in those lines. And it's what you call painting with wool, I suppose, because it's a flat felt project. And it's a really, really relaxing piece to work on, because the shape's very simple, but what you want to do is get the shape right. So really focus on staying within those lines. Don't try and rush it. If you try and rush it, you'll end up with lumps and bumps and an uneven finished piece. It's not a difficult piece, but it does take time to felt, as with everything, or any craft, but not as long as knitting or sewing, which is great. And you see results really quickly with needle felting, which is why it's so absolutely fabulous to do. And you can see how that now, if I pull that away, keep pulling it off your mat, because you don't want it to stick too much. And I don't know if you can see that, you've got that wool coming through the back. And I'm just going to add a little bit more on. I'm not going to do the whole 3 layers in real time, because I think, you would get extremely bored. But you can pause, stop, rewind this tutorial whenever you feel like it, just in your own time. No pressure. If it's your first time needle felting, might not be the result you wanted, but it might be perfect. Who knows? It just depends. But it doesn't matter. You've got to do your first piece. Stop procrastinating and just crack on with it. If you don't get your first piece done, you'll never start. And once you've done one, you can look at it, you will have learned so much, you will have learned all the basic techniques, and you'll be so ready for your next piece. And can you see how this needle, I am just poking in straight lines, even at a diagonal angle. I am just poking straight in, no bending. This is pretty hard to break, but needles do break, and which is why you should always use them in a straight line. If you feel better using finger protectors, then please feel free to do so. You can also protect your fingers as well. We may do it later on, is with a piece of card folded up and your piece put inside if you want to tidy up any edges, but I'll show you that later on. So as you can see, this is starting to fill up nicely here. What we want to make sure of as well is that these, these details here, like where the beak is going to be, is really secure. Don't leave any wisps. Make sure it's nice and firmly felted. And also with this having a white layer across the whole of the piece, it also allows you to do some reverse felting later on if you wanted to add more effects. And that is where you use a reverse felting needle, which basically pulls the fibres through the top layer. So the top layer is going to be a darker colour, and you could actually pull through some of the white for added detail. But that's entirely up to you, and don't even think about that if you've just started. Just grab one felting needle, and I think I'll probably use around 5 grams of wool for the entire project. So there's not a lot of wool needed. It's inexpensive, and it's a great way to get started. I think when you start with a project like this, or something small, something simple, really simple shapes, which a lot of my tutorials are, I think there's around 80 tutorials now on the YouTube channel, the Felt Hub. There's so much to go at, and just getting those simple basic shapes ready from the start, right from the start, is the key to everything really. And you'll be absolutely amazed at what you will learn during your first project. So that's our first layer down. Now I'm going to add another layer or two on top of that, but I'm just looking for, I did have a tool to speed up the here it is, the process of felting. Now this is what you often find referred to as a punch tool or just a multi-tool. Now this one has 7 needles in it, but I'm just going to remove 2 because 7 is a little bit much for this project. If you are doing a flat felted picture and you've got a lot of space to cover, then keep the 7 needles in. And also you can get them with 5 needles in, but this 7 needle ones are much cheaper and work just as well. Or you may have something like this, a needle felting pen, which again, they're all replaceable. That I've got 2 in there, but that actually takes 3 needles. So if you want to speed up your felting, that's really good. And these work really well for 3-dimensional felting. So what happens is, it's got a little guard on it. You just pull it to unlock it, and then you just push down. And this is good for if you've got older kids that are felting. This is really good because it's much safer because of the guard. So if they're, if you've got kids and they're capable and able to do this, then I would start them off on something flat felted, just for the safety aspect. Just got a little gap there. Just move that around. So move it around in different places so you can actually see the whole of your piece. And that's building up nicely. So I'll just pop that on there. And also, if you've got a big area, especially with, when you're doing a big needle felted picture, you really reduce the needle marks when you're using one of these. But it is like my go-to for super fast felting. If you're making big wings or big bunny ears, like the ears on this, the flat felt, the punch tool is a wonder. So there you go. Okay, so that is our first layer on. I'm just going to go around and tidy up the edges. I would like you to put another layer or two on, up to you. Just make sure everything's covered. Make sure you've still got this dark line visible, but go as close to the edge as you can. And then we'll crack on with the next section. So when you are filling in these layers and increasing the depth of your project, it's important that these edges are as deep as the middle part. So what you don't want to do is build it up in the middle, sort of have a mound in the middle and then really flimsy edges. Because especially if you say giving it as a brooch, as a gift that somebody's going to wear, it needs to be able to take some stick, which is why it's great to have the backing on as well. So what I would do is, if you're concerned that you haven't got enough wool at the edges, lay your wool on it. Just speeding this up. Have that overlapping and felted down, and then bring it, just fold it over, and that way you will increase the depth of those outer edges, including the tail and the beak as well. We don't want to lose this beak. So if you find that you're coming away from that line or your edges are getting really thin, then work out, start out a little bit over the line and then fold it over, and then you can quickly rectify that minor issue. And it is minor and very easy to deal with. Now, as you're building these layers up, what's really important is to make sure that you keep the definition and detail around these edges. And if you find that, you know, you're starting to get some wispy areas here, there's a really easy way to just sort that problem out. Use finger guards or keep your fingers well away from the needle. There's no reason for that needle to be any closer than that. And you can just work around those edges in a straight line, keeping that needle flat. And can you see how that is actually bringing those edges in and tidying them up? And then any softer bits that you might have here that you want to firm up, you can just use your needle to do that. And I'm just working around those edges. Just want to make sure I've got nice definition in this tail. Turn it round, and you'll see now as well, because it's getting really firm, it's stopped actually sticking to the underneath piece of felt. So I've got here, I'm just, as I said before, I'm slipping back away from the line a little bit here. So I'm just going to pull this forward. And again, your hands are brilliant tools. And I'm just going to poke that down. And be careful not to overfelt. What you will find is if you overfelt, you'll stop being able to move it around. And get any more sort of felting firmness in. Because what actually happens is when you overfelt, you actually start to break down the fibres, so they can actually start to go soft again, but you have to really overfelt for that to happen. So you see there, we're getting this really nice shape, and I would say I've got about 3 mils there, so I'm happy with that. You can see that's nice and firm. And if you've got a multi-tool, again, you can just fly over it. But it's not necessary and not needed with a project as small as this. There we go. And you see how easily that's pulling away. You can see the wool's barely adhering to the bottom piece. So that's a really good shape. You can use your fingers as well. Just to move that wool around. It's the great thing about wool, it's just really pliable. So then, as you can see here, we've got this nice sort of half of the bird, including all of the tail, and the beak is in the brown colours. So I'm just going to grab some brown. I've got carded brown here, but I'm thinking I might add a little bit of lighter brown in there. No, I'll do that on the top later. I might actually add in a little bit of darker. So what you can do is just blend with your fingers if you want. You can stick with one colour, but I've got some here and I thought, oh well, let's have a bit of variation. You don't need much. And then we'll add some light and shade a bit later on. Okay, so you pop that on. So we're going to cover all of this. I'm going to let it hang over the edge because I'm going to pull all that in. That's a fine one, is it? There we go. Move that over there. Don't need that at the moment. And I'm not going to be really precise here. I'm just going to bring it up because we've got this white area that just sits under the beak. So I'm just going to sort of use that as a guide. And then just bring this around here and really quickly just get this sticking to the wool. What we don't want is we don't want severe lines. It's quite an organic look. Just take that bit off. And we'll reshape the tail in a moment. As you can see, I'm not over felting actually in the center there. I'm just going to start bringing that in now. And with the firm needle as well, you've got quite a lot of play on it, so you can just, and you can even just tease fibers down so they stretch out and give a more subtle appearance. And then work around. And as you can see, I've got a little bit there that isn't covered, and we really want that completely covered. We don't want to see any white, so I'm just going to bring that wool over. If you've not got enough wool, add some more. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit poking through, but try and cover as much as you can. And take any bits of grass that are in the wool, and then you can see there we've got this nice shape here, so I'm just going to pull that down there. I've got a little bit of white there that I don't want to see, so I'm just going to pop that in right at the base, not on the top, at the base, and then guide it around. You see, so we're starting to cover that up. Bring that over. And then we can go around and reshape once we know everything is covered. And you will see that line appear again, which is your guide. So you'll never lose that shape if you keep that in your line of sight. We've lost the shape on the tail there, but because I haven't over felted, that doesn't matter, because we can shape it in and we can do it really firmly, and then we can start to just shape in like so. I'm just going to tap that down there, and then we soon get that colour back. Just got some white visible there, so I'm going to drag that over. And then you can really sort of start to work it. I've got a little bit of white there, which I want covering. So again, I'm going to start at the base so that I'm actually covering that dark line, that dark outline, because I want to make sure that there isn't any white visible there. And I'm going to add a little bit more on the beak in a moment. We don't want the beak to be flimsy, it needs to be as strong as the rest of the piece. So let's just bring that down to the edge of that line, and then we can start to, I'm just going to pull that out. You can just see, I'm just going to pull that out a little bit. And then what you can do here is, if you've got that finer needle, doesn't matter if you haven't, you can continue to work with a coarser needle. You can then be a little bit more delicate, just gives you a little bit more play. It's not quite as fierce So it's because we're getting to the top layers now, it's becoming a little bit more gentle, because we don't need to be felting right into the piece now. We really are just working on those top layers. And like I say, you could have just leave it as one colour, but you know, we've got a nice blend going on here with those two colours. And then, as you can see here, we need to cover this. And I reckon this entire piece, when it's finished, will probably weigh about 8 to 10 grams maximum. Probably not even that. Let's get that in there. And then I can just see I'm losing that tail there. Easily rectified. Just be careful if you're using your fine needle here not to overbend it, because this will break much more easily than your coarser needle. And then let's get some more shape into that tail again, as we did with the first layers. And remember, all this black around the edge will disappear. We'll be cutting sort of into that, slightly into it, so you won't see any of that. But it makes such a difference, helping you to create the shape and keep it the shape that it needs to be. It's a really good guide. And I'm just going to leave these wispy. I don't want, you know, severe lines. And then here, let's just tap in here so we don't lose that beak. And you see what we've got there? And that's looking really good. And we just want to make sure this line is nice and smooth and organic. No dents. There we go. Now, can you see how that is coming together really beautifully? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add some detail to the chest. And I am going to pick a lighter brown, I think, to do this, just for variation. And what you need, you're kind of making a triangle with a curve in the base. You see here, when you actually look at the song thrush, you'll see that it has these little sort of curves to its little shape, and you're using tiny amounts of wool. So just get a bit, roll it in your hand or go straight to it. I'm going to use my finer needle, just poke in, and then shape as you are poking that in. And then what you can do is just drag those sides out a bit, bring that in. And it's a little bit fiddly, so you need to take your time. There you go. And just go with whatever direction that shape wants to go in. So mine's ended up on the side there, but as you can see, and you can make them much smaller than that, but I'm going to keep mine as is. I'll just show you again. So very small piece, just roll it in your hands, you're not felting it, and then just pop it onto the bird, the white base. And then I'm going to, this is going to be this curve here, a slight curve, and I'm going to draw that in to a triangle, bring that up, go back to my thicker needle, just because I don't want to break my fine one by pulling the wool around. And if you find that it's too big, just poke it in a bit more. But if you use a finer needle for that, or go very carefully with your coarse needle, then you don't ruin the shape you've already created here. And then continue with that until you've got quite a few pieces in and you're happy with the number you've got and the detail, and then we will start to work on the top details, the eye here, a little bit more colour on the beak, maybe a little bit more colour here, a bit more light and shade, and then we'll do the wing, which is really easy. But whatever you do, it's less is more. So whatever amount of wool you've got, use a little bit less than that, because I can guarantee you'll still have too much and you end up with big lumps of it. And you want nice, fine, delicate details. But yeah, I hope you really are enjoying my tutorials. I have been teaching since 2014 and this is what I love. This is my love, my passion is teaching. I've taught thousands of people to needle felt in the last decade or so. And I've never got bored of that. Oh, that one went quite well. You'll find that. Oh, that's a good one. I'll just leave that. And sometimes it's really rubbish and you just pull it off. So keep adding these tiny little pieces. Don't overcrowd it. There we go. Again, tiny, tiny amounts. I mean, what do you love about needle felting? Let me know in the comments. That would be brilliant. Let me know what you would like to see as the next project. Is there something that you want to have a go at that I haven't covered, or you'd really like to try? That would be really useful if you could let me know. I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, I could put a few more in like I did on here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to crack on with this bit here. Right, what I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm just going to add, I want a bit of colour. I know it doesn't have this colour, but I just feel like it needs a little bit of something brighter. And I'm just wondering if I could move there. I think there would work, just to give it a bit of a lift. And I'm just tapping it in, really, just really in that very top layer. Yeah, quite like that. You don't have to do this. It's your project. You do it any way you see fit. But if you're doing craft fairs, you're selling online, then these are great little projects to sell. When I first started out, I used to sell lots and lots of brooches. I used to do robins and dogs, as I mentioned, the Jack Russell one, and the song thrushes. My daughter came up with a great owl design, so I stole that from her and used that. Just rubbing that with my fingers just to rough it up a bit, because I felt like I'd overfelted it a little bit there. So that's another great thing you can do. There we go. So yeah, perfect for quick projects, gifts, like I say, especially if you're doing events. They are brilliant because you can sell them at a reasonable price. Don't undersell yourself. A reasonable price, but you can, you know, they're not overly expensive, and people like the little projects. Right, so I'm just going to go over this beak a little bit here, and I've just added some white in there just for some light and shade. But again, you go with whatever you feel works best for your design. And the great thing is, I mean, it could be a robin, it could be any bird you wish. I did some gorgeous oh, where are they from? Blue robins. Someone tell me where the blue robins come from, the blue and orange robins, you know, bright blue and orange robins. I'm not sure if it was America, Canada. Anyway, I'm sure someone will be able to correct me. But they are absolutely beautiful. I'll find some photographs. I'll try and pop some up on here for you to see, so you get some ideas. There we go. So look how that is coming on fabulously. Nice and firm, doing really well. And now what I'm going to do is, before we put the eye on, and I'm going to use a a glass bead. So that's a 4mm glass bead and it's got a hole in it. You just go on eBay and buy a bag of them. They're really cheap. But get the glass ones because they have a really nice shine to them. They really glint, and I use them for loads and loads of projects. I use them for parsley hair here, and they are beautiful. I do realistic eyes when necessary, but I do love that shine of that bead, and it's perfect for this bird. But so we don't lose that bead, because this is quite a dark area, what we want is we want a layer of white here, and we could blend that with this sort of, it's very blonde, sort of creamy colour, just to dampen it down a little bit so that, you know, it's not quite as bright as that. So again, it's like a little sort of petally teardrop shape. Again, start with less than you think you need. Pop that on, take your needle and just use your needle to shape that. So it's kind of round here, and then we're going to just pull it, stretch it forward. And again, just tapped on, don't overfelt this. And then just draw that out there, get it in there, nice and neat. Like I say, don't overfelt it. We're going to be, you know, you're going to be sewing your needle, your eye onto that. There we go. It looks pretty good. And we can also trim any wispy bits that we want later on. Now, I did mention using a reverse felting needle, and I'm just going to quickly show you what I mean. So reverse felting needle, when you rub your fingers down it backwards, you feel all the barbs. With a standard felting needle, when you rub that way, you'll feel all the barbs. So the barbs run in the opposite direction. And the idea, you can create some really nice light and shade. And can you see this white coming through? I'll just show you here. I'll overdo it so you can really see how that pulls through. And I use this on loads of projects. Beautiful for hairs if you want to give them fluffy heads. I used it for the side of this fox head here. I mean, it gives amazing detail. Really, really great tool. And I didn't use it for about 2 or 3 years when I first started, and you know, I had one and I just never used it, and once I realized how amazing it was, I use it all the time now. The same with the wooden barbecue skewer. I have a lot of tutorials on using the wooden barbecue skewer for your projects. In fact, this hair was made entirely around this barbecue skewer. No wires, it's super firm, obviously apart from the ears, and it is just the felting tool that a needle felter never knew they needed. Absolutely brilliant. And it's probably in your kitchen drawer. Best tool ever. Got loads of tutorials. I'll pop some links on how to use that. So as you can see, we've got this nice blend coming through. Now you could actually either poke that back in to give it some light or shade, as so. You can leave it wispy depending on the project you're using. Obviously we don't want that on here. Or you can just trim very close and you've still got that light and shade coming through. But that's just to show you what can be achieved with that. It's a brilliant tool. Okay, so there we go. So next we're going to start on the wing. Really easy. We're not going to felt onto a backing because we don't need to, because it's going to sit straight on our bird and felt straight onto there. But what I have done is, if you've got the template, remember the free template will be listed in the description for you, so you can have access to that absolutely free. So I am just going to blend. Oh, I just want to show you. See this needle here? There's these markings on it. It's just oxidization. If you've got needles like this that oxidize, it's just the air. This is a really good quality needle, but any stainless steel will oxidize with air over time. So it doesn't affect the use of them at all. So again, I am just going to blend. And I'm going to show you a really great technique for getting a good shape. And I feel like we should be having a bit more light in this wing. So let's just, I don't want to sort of drown it in darkness. Just do this by hand. If you're blending big amounts, you can use, I'll just show you, these dog brushes. They're just called slicker brushes. Now I think you can get them, I used to be able to get them in Pets at Home, but you can probably get them on eBay or somewhere like that. And they're just dog slicker brushes, and you can just blend larger amounts. Better than paying over the odds for the, you know, the blending brushes, unless, you know, that is something specific that works for you. If it's for work, it's for a specific project, you use them a lot. But if you're not going to use them a lot, it is quite a large investment because they can be very expensive. Okay, so I've got some nice blending there. What I'm going to do here, lay that out, move to a different spot, and I am going to work around this. This is where you need to be careful with your fingers. I would use finger guards if this is your first time, or, you know, you've not been needle felting long, but please keep those fingers away. It does hurt. You do get used to it, and it doesn't hurt for long. Honest. So I've just used that to create or draw a very simple shape with my felting needle. I'm just going to lift that up so you can see. I don't know if that's in focus. Is that in focus? And then what we're going to use, all of this wool, take a bit of this off. But we want this to be quite thick as well. So I would say that's a good couple of mils thick. So then you'll feel resistance where you've drawn around that needle, and that's where you stop. So you pull this in, and it's such an easy way. You don't need a template or a cookie cutter for this. And it's one of those shapes that you're less likely to have as, you know, in your drawer for cookie cutters. We've all got the circles and things, so we can make perfect circles with our cookie cutters. But this is one of those shapes that, you know, you have to sort of tend to do by freehand. And just working that in. And the reason we want to work over those edges is so we have a nice edge. We don't have any raw wool. We don't have any wispy bits. You see how that's just going to firm up really nice. And we're not too concerned about the shape at the moment. We just really want to work this wool and make sure you felt where the tip of the tail is going to be. I'm just going to go to my double pen here. Don't need it, but I want to speed it up for the video. Let me know as well if you are new to felting, if you're struggling, or if you're struggling to get started. It's the back there, you can see. I'd love to know. I'm always available for advice. My blog, my needle felting blog, my ultimate blog guide to needle felting, and it is an ultimate blog guide. It is absolutely rammed full of needle felting tutorials, written tutorials, all free for you to go and peruse at your leisure. There's a great menu showing you exactly where you can start. And you won't go wrong if you go on there. There's a wool guide, there's a felting needle guide, you know, how to use wool, what wool's best to use. I try and keep it as simple as possible. There are loads of beginner tutorials. There are tutorials for more confident needle felters, sort of intermediate needle felters. You know, I'm thrilled with how my blog has come on. I never intended on starting a blog. It just sort of happened with one post, and I thought, oh, okay, that went down quite well. And I just continued, and I've been doing that since 2017. No, 2017 I think was my first blog post. And oh, it's wonderful. Just go over there. You will just immerse yourself in needle felting heaven. Yeah, and if you want a confidence boost, there's a few posts on building your confidence, you know, to stop yourself procrastinating. How many of you have got kits that are still sat there? Probably mine, some of my kits, which I don't sell anymore, but you've probably got some of my kits sat there. Get them out, get them started. You've got nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain. There's no downsides to creating, even if what you create isn't what you expected. It doesn't matter. I tried to make a mouse and I came out with a cat, and I can't make cats, so that was a really happy accident for me. Believe you me, you know, we all started right at the beginning the same as you. Start on chapter 1, stop looking at everyone's chapter 5 and comparing. You can't do that. You haven't even done chapter 1 yet. You'll never get started. And don't worry about what people think. Who cares? Don't show them if you don't want to. It's about what you get out of it. Look at that. Beautiful. I think I might have overfelted that. I might end up actually cutting this out around the felt, actually. I did say you don't have to, but I think, as you can see, I've forgotten to move it. One of my top tips, always move your felt around. And I haven't done it. Ergo, lovely felted piece to the this felt backing. But again, it'll add more stability. And that's my story, and I am sticking to that. Okay, so that's looking quite nice. I still feel like we need some more colour. So I'm just going to add, like we did with the bird, just going to add a little bit there, just to give it a lift. Which I think should work. Once it's on, we can add a little more if necessary. Okay, so I hope you're all doing really well. I hope you are loving this tutorial as much as I am loving teaching it. I get so many beautiful, amazing messages from people telling me how wonderful needle felting is and how it's really sort of helped them to manage the stress in their lives or the pain. You know, it really is, it's so meditative. There's no tricky patterns, there's no fiddly stitches. And there's always a way to rectify it. You know, it's I suppose like with painting, you know, you put a brush mark down and it can be, especially if you're doing watercolour or something like that, it's there forever. But with this, it isn't. So it's so much more relaxing and inexpensive and portable and all the wonderful things that crafts should be, all wrapped up in needle felting. Okay, so I'm going to cut this wing out. Hope it's not too long. Can always sort that out if it is. So you just want to be really close to the wool, but not cutting into it. So almost sort of going underneath it. And I'm using a small pair of scissors here, as you can see. Don't try not to use a big clunky pair of scissors because you will find it much more difficult to cut around. Hope this is in focus. There we go. That's cut out quite nicely. And that's a good shape. Put that on there now, as you can see. And you can also bend that as well and create more of a point there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that to the bird. And I will let you carry on and then I'll show you how we do it. So for those of you who notice my not deliberate but deliberate rookie error, no, I can't lie, I made a mistake. I always do this. When you're doing it on a piece of backing felt, please make sure you do it the right way. So I've quickly made another wing without the backing felt. That's why I always do it without the backing felt. One of my problems is I can't seem to turn things around in my head sometimes. I'm great at tiling floors, that kind of thing, but when it comes to corners, massive problems. So yeah, on this, as you can see, the wing would be upside down. So I've quickly put together another wing just so we can get it right. So I apologise if you've made a whole wing and it's the wrong way round. It'll do for the next one. Just make the bird the other way round. You see what I mean? Sorry about that, but there you go, happens. Fortunately, it was just the wing, which doesn't take long to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it out or add that wing. I'm going to add that wing while it's on the backing felt. I do think I might need a little bit of dark here though, just because it seems a little bit lost. I'm going to take a really tiny amount of black, dark brown, and I am just going to pop it on the edge of this wing here, almost just as a highlight. So when it actually sits on there, and I'm going to make it almost disappear. That one, this one, underneath there, and it will just make it pop a little bit, but you kind of want to make it disappear. So it's barely visible. Can you see? Just in there. Don't have to, but I just felt I'd lost a little bit of detail there, and I'm just going to make sure I haven't lost that shape, that curve. And again, you can do that with your fingers, you can bend it round. And I'm just going to pop it on there. And then I'm going to push through, all the way through with my needle. And you see that's starting to attach, but I'm also going to go through from the back as well. And it doesn't matter if some of that white comes through, because it adds some nice highlights, and then you're catching it both sides so it's more firmly felted. If you wanted to, you could sew it on, invisibly sew it on, which is dead easy, and or you could when you've done, hot glue gun it on. But remember, if you hot glue gun it on, see how that white's come through really nicely. If you hot glue gun it on and you're adding a brooch back, you'll probably need to hot glue gun on the brooch back as well, because you can't sew through the glue. But I do that all the time. Just put you could pop your brooch back in a slightly different place and you'll miss where you've glued it. But hot glue guns are brilliant. That's another thing you should have in your felting stash. And you see we've got this lovely wing on there, and I'm just going to pop a little bit of white around that edge there. So I'm not quite happy. So this is what happens when you're felting. You'll add a bit and you think, oh, that doesn't look right. So that black was a bit stark. So I've just toned it down now. That's better, with a little bit of white. Put that under there. There we go. It would be amazing as well if you could subscribe to my channels. It makes all the difference. It helps me so much. All my tutorials are free. Everything on the blog's free. I'm always doing discounts for my patterns. I've got something like 60 patterns on the website. If you're part of the Felt Hub on my Facebook group, you get loads of free downloads in there. I'll pop all the links below for you. But if you could just really give me a like and subscribe to the channel, it makes a huge difference. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we are ready to cut this out, and then you can either create the eye with a little bit of black wool, or if you have the beads, black glass bead somewhere, If you've got one of my kits and you haven't done it yet, you'll find some glass beads in there. I always put extras in, so feel free to nab one of those. Could I sound much more Yorkshire? I'm in Lincolnshire, been here for 20 plus years, but the Yorkshire lass has never left, I'm happy to say. And so when you've cut this out, just make sure, you know, that none of it, when it's flat, you don't want to see any of these edges. And what you can actually do as well, because I've got a wool base here, you can actually just push that edge down. And I'm sure most of you will probably know how to sew on a bead. But if you don't, I'll pop a link below, because there is a section in my other tutorials where I sew the bead on. But it's basically, you've got the hole, black thread in and out of the holes just a few times through the back, and that is it. You know, pull it quite tight because it wants to sit in the eye, and then you can see how that is going to make that pop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew an eye on, and I'm going to add a few more little details here, and try to remember not to make backwards wings. Sorry about that. There you go. That's tutorials for you. I could have edited it out, but why bother? It happens to all of us. So I'm thrilled that you joined me today. Hope you really enjoyed that. There is so much on the YouTube channel, the Felt Hub. If you want to learn how to make perfect circles and get these perfect finishes, there's a tutorial on that as well. So it's really good for practicing and getting your basic skills in order. Thanks so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.